All right, so get this. Half of all U.S. states could face energy shortages and blackouts this summer. And despite that, Biden's clinging tight to his green agenda, putting a greater strain on America's power grid.
The nonpartisan says the policies that you're putting out in Washington, and only Washington can fix it, is basically putting us at risk. You should take heed. It's ridiculous that government action is creating new categories of grid risk instead of preventing the risk. You can't take something off before you have something equally as good, if not better, to replace it with. You might not like coal, but coal's built this country what it is today. They're just damned to do it because of the political reasons.
He makes more and more sense every time I hear him. Here to weigh in now is JunkScience.com founder and former Trump EPA transition team member, Steve Milloy. Steve, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for being here. So they keep putting the pedal to the metal, pardon the pun there, with their green agenda. Even though it's not working, it's putting the country at risk of blackouts and all kinds of problems as we're heading into the summer season. Yet they double down instead of just backing off a little bit and saying we need more time to get to the end goal here. Nobody would penalize them for that.
Well, Jackie, thanks for having me. Joe Manchin had his chance to vote against all this nonsense and shore up the grid back with the Inflation Reduction Act, and he voted the wrong way. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the Biden administration has been systematically dismantling our grid while burdening at the same time with EVs and heat pumps. And we have data centers coming on, AI data centers coming online now. We need more electricity, not less. Yet we have utilities who have been incentivized really to replace their fossil fuel generation with wind and solar. We have the Biden administration that is on a crazy anti-fossil fuel jihad. They've got rules to shut down gas plants and coal plants. None of it can be replaced with wind and solar because we don't have the transmission facilities. The whole thing is a disaster. Utility regulators around the country know that we're at risk of rolling blackouts this summer because we don't have the fossil fuel baseload power to back up the grid. But nobody seems to care. Congress doesn't seem to care. Consumers, we have no representation with public service commissions or politicians. The utilities own all the politicians. It's a disaster all the way around.
Well, I think the American electorate is somewhat passively supportive of these policies on the green agenda because they haven't had to live with the consequences of wind and solar. And this summer, if they do with blackouts, I think they'll have a changing tune to Joe Biden's green agenda because they don't like the rolling blackouts. They like power. They like to have AC work in their house. But I want to move to this, Steve, because they're going to follow their fearless leader no matter the cost. Ford losing a whopping $132,000 for every EV sold in the first quarter of this year. But they still support Biden's crazy emission standards that could, at the rate they're now going, put them out of business. So, Steve, listen, can you explain this to me? I don't get it. Ford's losing a ton of cash on EVs, but they support Joe Biden's push to transition us to all EV cars.
Yeah. Well, so I think Ford is trying to play it, too cute by half. I think, first off, the Fords are leftists.
Yeah.
Okay. That's just how they are. They're not conservatives at all. Despite that, I think they secretly hope that Trump wins because Trump is the way out for their company from this, massive failure that is EVs. But at the same time, they can't afford to anger the Biden administration because, there is some chance that Biden could win this fall. And then what's Ford going to do? So they're going to lay low. There's already an ongoing lawsuit. Red states have sued the Biden administration. So I think my guess is that Ford is really just going to surf that lawsuit, hope that the attorneys general win, and then also hope that Trump wins, and then they're home free. But if they have to live with the Biden administration, then they don't want to have angered them.
That's an interesting chess play, Steve. We'll see how it all shakes out for Ford and everyone else. We so appreciate your time, Steve Milloy.